Homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. During the Esala Poya Dhamma Session, there was a question that was asked in relation to the maranasati, the death contemplation, and that wasn't released in the session video or the talk. And the reason was because this person was giving a very vivid account of the fruit of their practice in terms of the contemplation of death. And I wasn't sure whether this was something that in their own voice was to be released to the internet. And so I think the question is actually quite valuable, and also to share the answer. And it's very helpful because although the person has contemplated death and seen the dead body for themselves, their own dead body, and that's a very good dhammata, because what you're confirming is the death is dukkha, that you clearly see that death is dukkha. And the question that came up was, is it enough? Do I need to meditate more as a death contemplation to see more than that? And also from there, is it important to see past lives? And should that be done? Because the person's not very interested in knowing all the details of that. And I think one of the things as part of the answer that was given during the Dhamma session is to confirm that there is a reason why Buddha has given this statement, particularly in looking at Dukkha patipadas, the modes of practice, and also in kayanupassana, the contemplation of the body, to see very clearly this body and the predicament of this body, and to have the death contemplation firmly established. And therefore you find the charnel ground contemplations, and also it's all linked also back to 32 body parts contemplation and elements as well, the dhatus, to understand that.
The thing is with the death contemplation, what the Buddha says in the suttas, particularly with the Dukkha patipadas, and in that section of Anguttara Nikaya, is always to have death contemplation firmly established. And from hearing your account and being able to see that, which is what we actually all want to be able to see, is that firmly established, that you're very clear about death, particularly one's own death, because that's the direct insight that you receive, that you see what comes out of the body, that this body is not to be taken as subha, that at death there is all this oozing through the different 9 holes, that it is festering, that it is bloated. So we never misapprehend. So that is very clear for you. Now, as for whether you go on with that meditation, the only reason that people go on is because they have doubts about rebirth in different realms. Because through the death contemplation, that is one access point to actually access past rebirths through how did I die before? You know, what you could say is how did I die before? But particularly if you don't trust, for some people, they don't trust that initial meditation where they see it and they start to glimpse and they think, oh, maybe it's something I saw in a movie. For some people, it's very much like that. But for other people, they really do see it so strong. And you see it from upekkha. So you don't see it from I like it or dislike it or any kind of other feelings around it. What you establish is really this very strong sense of upekkha. It's a noble truth at that point, and it's very firm. So when people don't have that, they go back and they because they're looking down at their body, they're in the mind-made body, so to speak. And at that point, if you wanted to, then you develop it further by going further into the decaying body. And then you ask yourself the question, what was my previous death? And if the concentration is very strong, then the mind will allow you to see that. And for some people, you don't see the actual death itself. You might see the hospital bed or the accident or whatever type of death it was. And as you say, it's not out of interest to have the knowledge of all the various details of previous birth. For people that look at it, it's really to be assured that the linking from one birth to another birth to another birth, that it all ends up in this aging and death process, that you see this jati, jara, marana. You know how the Paticca Samuppada shows that link, that we die because we are born. And so when people look at past lives correctly, it's only to see the jati, jarabya, maranam link in the Paticcasamuppada, to say, I've seen it. And so you know everything before the birth, the tanha, the upadana, that's all the things that you're ready to let go of. So you know that you've practiced, like say the Samadhi Bhavana Sutta, you practice and you go, at the time of death, you've got nothing to fear because you've practiced this, you know you're not going to choose wrongly. You've seen the truth. That's what Dhamma is about. So your question is a very helpful one for all of us. Now, in terms of the other way you can see previous births, if one should wish to, as I've said during this talk, is seventh jhana. So you don't have to go through maranasati, the death contemplation. If you gloss over the stories of the Buddha and you don't have much saddha, then it's really important to develop the meditation so that you have direct insight. Direct insight is always very important. As we know, Buddha, this is one of the knowledges, the 73 knowledges that we also have access to. 7 of them we have access to.